2B was a sadistic, clueless android who looked like nerfed Gojo if he was a girl. Along with her dumb and overactive femboy partner 9S, she traveled the ruined city hoping to get rid of the mechanical trash that laid waste to their world. Over time, she learnt what it meant to have emotions, and how even the ugliest of lifeforms could prove to be useful. 2B flew what looked like a cheap second-hand mecha flight suit, while fighting robots that looked even cheaper. The cheap junk was so ass that she got bored and decided to fly through some of them. She was about to fly through another set, when a red beam of light appeared out of nowhere, aiming to destroy her already trashed flight suit. Flying up from below the sky was a low-budget Star Wars ship, shooting more red beams at her till eventually it blew one of her engines. The flight suit crashed and became a transformer, gliding over the ocean till it swooped up with an energy sword to split the Star Wars ship in half, standing tall like the rusty old suit it was. After receiving instructions from her base, 2B's transformer converted back to a flight suit and flew off into a broken tunnel beneath a ghost town. She crashed into the wall and landed feeling like hot stuff, pretending everything was fine. Holding her sword like she was a bleach swordsman, she prepared to fight more junk robots alongside her talkative robot assistant. Meanwhile, the femboy-looking 9S was somewhere on the other side of the city, hacking into local rated sites rather than meeting up with 2B, till he got caught by someone from base. Back in the ghost town, 2B was slicing up more junk robots, showcasing skills, even though no one was watching. The talkative robot assistant finally came in handy when it shot a bigger trash robot, which 2B finished off with a kick. Things seemed well until a giant rusty beef cutter came out of nowhere and started attacking 2B. Seemed the only way the junk robots could think of matching 2B was sending bigger, rusty and cheap robots. She thought she had finished the meat cutter after firing it with a beam from her robot assistant, but the only thing it did was make it a meat cutter that could cook. Finally, the useless femboy showed up and destroyed the meat cutter using missiles from his own cheap flight suit. Looking down at 2B staring like a watered-down Gojo, he finally came down to converse with his new partner. With their covered eyes and white hair, they'd be known as the Gojo twins. Their first mission as a team was to look for the core unit of the facility they attacked. It was already too late when they found it. It had become the biggest piece of junk they'd ever seen, with 2 beef cutters, similar to the one they destroyed. This piece of junk was so rusty and cheap, it could barely move its hands without crashing and tweaking. The Gojo twins worked together to try destroying it, with 2B running up its arms while attacking and 9S spamming its missiles like a one-piece Navy ship. They destroyed a part of it, and 9S proceeded to use his hacking skill to infiltrate the giant tin trash pile. In this process, his femboy self got thrashed as well, requiring 2B to help treat him. Feeling like a hero who had completed his mission ready to die, he asked his partner to go on without him and use his flight suit. 2B, now without the help of her Gojo twin, attacked the giant trash bot using her partner's flight suit. Dodging the barrage of attacks the giant sent, she jumped off the mecha and attempted to destroy the robot using her sword, feeling like Ichigo, but unfortunately for her, she didn't have his plot armor and was blasted away with the explosion. When she recovered, she saw her almost dead partner right beside her. Sadly for them, the giant trash can hadn't died. They resorted to their last option, a black box reaction that would destroy everything, including them. Resigning to their fates, they successfully reacted and destroyed the robot. The next day, 2B woke up surprised at the fact she was still alive. Luckily for her, 9S wasn't so useless. He backed up their data, which allowed them to be restored in new bodies. Maybe she did have some amount of plot armor after all. In an unknown city ruin, one of the junk bots which was destroyed revived itself, with its circuits twitching and his parts falling around. He walks around like an important side character in his final moments. He passed more revived junk bots, and they continue their path together as a family of worthless junk, working in a facility where more junk are created and destroyed. This junk bot felt different from the others. He thought he was important and wanted to learn what humanity was by reading comics and watching TV. He imitated what he saw on both, ignoring an NPC who shot him, laying down a flower and trying to plant a tree. He felt special unlike the rest. He catered for his plants and played with birds, forgetting he was a useless scrap of metal. Finally, its plants began to show signs of growing and he kept on watching them. Before long, the other junk bots began to notice, and they approached him wondering what it was that kept the big junk bot busy. He showed them his flowers and how he took care of them. Days later, he and his junk bot friends had forgotten they were garbage and proceeded to grow a garden. Their special life wouldn't last long. The humans in the area had begun to take notice. Headed by a shady, depressed female, a group of people set their sights on preparing to attack the junk bots, wondering why they suddenly became peaceful. While the special bots remained caring for their garden, the other careless junk bots came in numbers to see what had taken one of their fellow tin cans. Meanwhile, at Yora base, 9S thought it was funny to play with the processor of 2B, forcing her to wake up. She's without her blindfold this time, with a pigmentation around her eye making her look like a bride who just cried. She tells 9S she knew what he was doing with her system, making him lose composure. Fortunately for him, the general was calling. They met up with the goth-like general who had a mission for them. She sent them on a mission to the unknown city ruin where the special junk bots resided. They were to meet up with the depressed leader and her people to recon. Back in the ruins, the junk bots had already started attacking. They blew up the resource truck of the human group, forcing the group to retreat. Before that, the other junk bots had already run through the garden of the specials, destroying 3 smaller ones in the process. The bigger first special bot was nowhere to be found. He was somewhere else in another garden, looking towards the smoke that rose from this previous garden. As the junk bots continued their assault on the group, they decided that they'd take the bots down with the bridge, setting up explosives as they waited for the junk bots to come. Suddenly they noticed something strange, which happened to be the special tin can. The other junk bots were ravaging his garden. He tried to stop them, but he couldn't do anything other than watch them destroy the garden and get on the bridge. The group tried to explode the bridge, but it failed, as the dumb engineer who set it up failed to connect it properly. When all hope seemed lost, a mysterious body fired missiles at the bridge and garden. It destroyed every junk bot, including the special bot. In its dying moments, he reached out to one last flower, knowing he died different from the other cheap junk bots. The source of the missiles were from the Gojo twins. It all seemed fine until a big special junk bot attempted to attack the leader of the group. Luckily, the assistant robots of 2B and 9S shot it down. The special junk bot had died, but he left a legacy. The other useless cheap bots from his family were reading comics just like him. He was the useless tin can version of Eren Yeager they needed to grow. After helping the group destroy junk bots, 2B and 9S discussed recon with the members. They asked why the horrible-looking red-haired twins were with them and not in an incinerator for looking that ugly. 9S moves on to check out what looked like the beef cutter from the giant tin can pile that almost turned him to mincemeat. The group gained clearance and finally allowed 2B and 9S into their camp of deranged people with guns calling themselves the Resistance. In this camp were a bunch of other ugly people with more wrecked trash. Everything in their world seemed to be either third-grade trash or dilapidated junk. 2B stopped 9S and warned him to stop looking at her rice cakes. They met up with the ugly gorilla-like weapons maker of the group, who thanked them for destroying the junk bots. They also come across a low-budget pirate who thought it was cyber season and talked so much, his voice seemed to annoy them. After listening to their endless yapping, 9S reminded them why he was a Gojo twin and silenced the 2 ugly brutes. Before long, they met up with the depressed female leader named Lily, who seemed interested in 2B. They also met her assistant who was born in such a wrong time, they had her named Jackass. Back on the moon, the Council of Humanity looked at the Gojo twins. The goth-like commander passed more instructions to the engineers watching the twins, holding her cane, ready to discipline whoever wasn't acting in accordance with her rules. She passed more instructions to the engineers. 2B and 9S continued discussing with the leader of the group and her assistant. They concluded on investigating the new behavior of the junk bots. The leader of the group remained, wanting to play with her jukebox. A few hours later, 2B and 9S went off into the desert with the help of the assistant leader of the group. On their way, they were ambushed by junk bots, this time dressed like sandbenders from Avatar. 2B slices the smaller bots with her usual junk bot slayer attitude, while 9S hacked into the biggest one. In the mental scape of the trash bot was a crazy sight. Egyptian-looking junk bots were having a celebration. It was put to an abrupt end when 9S killed the trash can in its mind, making it crash in the real world. This made it easier for 2B to finish it up. They followed the path of a useless junk bot who ran away after seeing the destruction, and they ended up in a ruined city. A nearby radio wave seemed to be jamming their signals. They came across multiple android corpses and eventually found a Yorha soldier, just like them. It was dead, and beside it was a junk bot covered in an unknown substance. They decided to go after the signal, jamming their communication. They came across more junk in unknown substances. An earthquake erupted, making them fall into the underground cavern where the signal was from. Down there they saw multiple junk bots behaving strangely. Like roaches climbing on stale meat, they mounted the pillars of the cavern and let loose a naked android, which the Gojo twins immediately killed. From this android came out another android. The androids looked and acted like Attack Titans from Attack on Titan, forcing the Gojo twins to retreat. Somewhere in the world, the Junkbots were behaving more and more strangely, this time creating their own cinema with acting so bad, it complemented their cheap design. Back at the resistance camp, 2B and 9S discussed with the depressed leader about what happened in the cavern. Meanwhile, at 𝐒𝐂𝐑𝐈𝐍𝐊, the goth-like general discussed with her superiors what would happen down on Earth. She was to send them a new mission. After a while, 2B and her femboy partner 9S were now to be sent on their new mission to find out what happened to their fellow 𝐒𝐂𝐑𝐈𝐍𝐊 soldier who ran mad processing all the shit in their world. Passing through some pipes and tunnels, they reached a bizarre amusement park where some Junkbots resided. The already useless Junkbots were now running a circus. This sight amused the Gojo twins, who walked into the theater to see what was going on. To their bewilderment, the tin cans were holding a stage play. They were imitating human life just like their role model, the Junkbot gardener. All of a sudden, a mutated Junkbot arrived, dressed like a cheap Barbie girl doll and rustier than iron. Forgotten in the sea for over decades, this ugly piece of trash attacked the Gojo twins. His rusty iron was so thick, none of the attacks from the Gojo twins worked. Unleashing an electronic barrier, it blocked all forms of escape for the Gojo twins. They might have escaped the Walmart Attack Titan, but they wouldn't escape it. He released explosive marbles from its raggedy dress, firing attacks simultaneously. Its goal was to be beautiful. For something dressed in clothing that awful, it was very far off from its goal. After an attack from 2B, its core was exposed, forcing it to attack more rapidly. Dropping corpses of androids mutated to weapons, it prevented 2B from attacking further, prompting 9S to attempt hacking into it. In this Junkbot's minscape were pictures of ugly trash tin cans it thought were beautiful. Its idea of beauty was uglier than it looked, a sight so horrible, it scared the femboy 9S. After seeing the horrible sight, 9S destroyed the mental scape of the ugly trash can, making it transform into something even uglier. In its mindscape, it was finally about to assimilate 9S, forcing 2B to hack into it as well to help. The not-so-useless femboy could finally throw his sword into the consciousness of the ugly trash, which 2B easily finished up with her trusty sword and robot assistant. After destroying the big tin can, they killed off the other Junkbots. 2 Junkbots begged for mercy, of course, without hesitation. 9S killed the cheap trash. Somewhere in the world, 2 half-naked androids sat at the ends of a table, the first reading a book and the other holding an apple. They were the low-budget attack titans that assaulted the Gojo twins. Their names were Adam and Eve. Eve complained to Adam that he didn't want to wear pants because that'd ruin his attack titan design. Adam didn't seem to care and asked him to eat the apple so he could finally stop being the unintelligent fool he was. Meanwhile, the androids 2B and 9S were out running errands for the resistance. 9S couldn't understand why he was doing such a task. He knew the resistance were useless, but not so useless they'd require him to perform tasks for them. After clearing that off his mind, he requested his partner call him Nines. Being the sadistic partner 2S was, she declined. They were to visit a junk robot site. 9S continuously kept on hitting on his partner, but she continued ignoring him. After a while, they reached the site. The Junkbots acknowledged their presence and waved white flags showcasing surrender. The trash cans there were friends of Lily, the depressed leader of the resistance. The Junkbots here were more useless than any other. They had fled from the war. They copied a human society and formed a community of useless trash cans. The Gojo twins encountered a female Junkbot who seized their robot assistants thinking they were objects it could use to worsen its ugliness. After they cleared out the issue with the robot, they went to the center of the site. At the center was the ugliest piece of scrap metal they had ever seen. It was stuck in a tree with teeth so scary it could act as a haunted house. When 9S scanned the Junkbot, it could see some of its memories, till the trash can decided to shut its lid and lock 9S out of its system. The useless robot they met earlier came in and explained it was their object of worship, which was very obvious considering they adored the ugliest stuff. The robot was named Pascal. It explained its history with the idol, from how useless it was in battle to how the idol gave it emotions. It acknowledged the idol made it a useless piece of insane junk, but it was happy in its garbage community. Severed from the network with the other Junkbots, they'd lived their life accepting they were defective trash cans safe from battle. After leaving the robot, 9S discussed with 2B how awful it was listening to the Junkbots. They were so ugly they almost made his eye bleed. Although the story did change his perspective. After they'd killed all the Junkbots, they would return there to try shopping. On their way back, they came across 3 Junkbots having a dispute. They fought over possession of a panty box. Their useless junkbot parents couldn't stop them. Eventually it broke, a sight so irritating it had 9S almost knocked their lights out. Back at the unknown table, the low-budget attack titans had started to look different. Now they had longer pants on and were gaining knowledge. The older brother Adam asked the younger brother Eve to read more if he wanted to be acknowledged by him, their new goal being to become the next human civilization. On a sunny day, Lily, the depressed leader of the resistance, woke up from a terrible dream. This dream was a memory she had, and someone who looked like 2B was in it. All her comrades were killed. That would explain why she had the personality of an old widow. She cleared her mind and continued her path with the androids 2B and 9S. They proceeded along a road that looked like Goku from Dragon Ball Z fought on it. On their way, Lily stopped to ask why 9S continued delaying them with his radar installation. She questioned the necessity of the meaningless task. While 9S was trying to explain, he realized he needed to take a shit, making him go way back. While Lily and 2B were alone, Lily narrated her encounter with another number 2 android. She explained that 𝐒𝐿𝐏𝐷 members required help from the resistance before she became leader. The former leader was an ugly, rugged lady with a scar named Rose. She negotiated with the number 2 and they came to the decision that they'd work together to fight the junk bots. On their way, they discussed further details on how they'd get rid of the junk bots once and for all. The other members of the resistance back then didn't trust the 𝐒𝐿𝐏𝐷 members, especially because they were hiding some secrets. Lily was one of them, but their leader assured them it would be fine. They continued their journey, going from cliffs to jungles to caves. Lily still didn't trust them, but she kept her ugly leader's words at heart. The next day, Lily got upset after seeing the 𝐒𝐿𝐏𝐷 members with a gun. Number 2 apologized because she didn't know the girl was so weak and cowardly. She'd be afraid of a tiny gun. On the other side of the camp, a 𝐒𝐿𝐏𝐷 member and a resistance member were in a competition, fighting over which dumbest member could fetch water the fastest. While they were arguing, an ugly fat member of the resistance drank up all the water. Lily was starting to lose it. Her eyes began glowing red like one of the cheap junk bots they had been battling. She was infected with an android disease. The other members of the resistance knew the best thing to do to a useless member who got themselves infected was to kill her off, but number 2 wouldn't agree. Rose made it clear it was the only option. Though she didn't like it, she had to kill her useless little sister. Number 2 remained insistent it could be cured and proceeded to block a bullet that was fired at Lily. Now feeling like Hulk, Lily flinged the 𝐒𝐿𝐏𝐷 members, restricting her. Grabbing her again, they pinned her down and healed her. Lily continued narrating her story to 2B. Number 2 had saved her, and they continued their operation. When they got there, they faced 300,000 junk bots. These bots moved like ants with lasers, shooting down everything in their path to get to sugar. They killed members of the resistance. The 2 idiots who competed over water decided they'd stay back to buy time. Nothing ever goes wrong if the useless ones die. As they got to the elevator, it was locked, requiring a 𝐒𝐿𝐏𝐷 member, number 21, to hack into the system. After successfully hacking, she got infected with Lily's former disease, forcing another useless resistance member to stay back and watch over the infected android. The others continued on their path and got to the lever. Lily narrated that Rose got injured while protecting her. This made number 2 send them back to the elevator. Rose refused to leave but sent Lily away. They successfully shut down the junk bots, leaving Lily all alone, depressed. She never forgot her former team, her ugly captain, her obese and stupid teammates, and the 𝐒𝐿𝐏𝐷 members who saved her. 2B pondered whether or not the 𝐒𝐿𝐏𝐷 members survived, but that'd be a whole lot of plot armor for a side character. At the mysterious table, Adam and Eve had continued evolving. Adam was now fully clothed and knowledgeable, unlike his younger brother Eve, who remained stupid in only pants. Because Eve was unintelligent, Adam decided he'd go out to the playground and leave his idiot brother behind, telling Eve that he'd only take him out if he finally stopped being an idiot. Meanwhile, the Gojo twins, 2B and 9S, were out in a field, looking at grazing moose. 9S continued hitting on his partner. She reminded him that they weren't in Alabama but in a post-apocalyptic world. They proceeded to discuss about the low-budget attack titans that got away. Their discussion was cut short when 2B received a call from base. Her engineer asked her to give advice on types of flowers that could intrigue a boy. 2B reminded her that she was just a sadistic android who was clueless, especially when it came to romance. While they kept on patrolling, some familiar ugly junk bots came through. It was the useless robot Pascal and one of her villagers, the sister of the creepier junk bot who attempted to take their robot assistants. Pascal explained that the trash can told her sister she was ugly. Even though it was the truth, and they were junk bots, it still hurt the robot's feelings. Ashamed and pondering about the issue, the ugly pile of scrap ran to the ruined forest where more piles of scrap were kept. Pascal and its fellow trash can begged for help. They needed to find the ugly junk bot before it would die. The Gojo twins agreed to help. Before long, they were strapped onto the junk bot Pascal and were flying towards the forest. Pascal explained it could fly because it was multi-purpose junk. Just like any cheap trash, it could be used for many useless activities. They finally landed in the forest and decided to walk the rest of the path. They got to a ruin where they found the ugly tin can's bow. Seemed it had finally begun to understand how ugly it was. The party went deeper in the forest and came across a destroyed junk bot. It was attacked by an android. They proceeded to a castle where Pascal stated the king of the forest lived. Upon entering, they came across a medieval trash can. It looked like a knight but sounded like a broken knight's gear. It had been attacked from the back, making the Gojo twins and Junkbot stay at alert. They got to the grave of the former king, a thrashed Junkbot which was covered in flowers that didn't hide its cheapness. They picked up a media player resting in the hands of one of the Junkbots dead beside the king, in the media player containing the king's memories. After walking around the castle a bit, 2B asked Pascal to stay back while she and her partner continued the search. 9S was totally against it. He believed he couldn't waste his time looking for useless trash. After getting convinced by 2B, they continued, and at last, they found the useless tin can. It was with another medieval junkbot. Apparently, the piece of trash saved it. The useless junkbots seemed to be getting more insane by the day, as the two useless hunks of scrap metals were planning on getting married. 2B and 9S decided they wouldn't get involved with that scenario and moved away to get themselves away from all the ugly. Suddenly, an android dropped from the sky. It was a sadistic android named 2A. She was a fugitive that the Gojo twins were required to kill. After engaging her for a bit, the android's blade broke, forcing her to retreat. Before leaving, she revealed that it didn't betray 𝐒𝐿𝐍, but 𝐒𝐿𝐍 betrayed it. With that said, she escaped, leaving the Gojo twins to ponder her words. After A2 escaped, 2B and 9S contacted 𝐒𝐿𝐍 headquarters and explained the encounter. The goth-like commander gave them a new mission: to find the rogue android and investigate it. When the call ended, Pascal, the useless junkbot, dropped by, telling the Gojo twins about what transpired after it left. They asked it whether it knew about A2, but like the useless hunk of junk it was, it knew nothing. The next day, the Gojo twins headed back to the resistance camp. They interrogated the depressed leader Lily, asking her what she knew about A2. The depressed leader refused to answer, knowing they'd destroy A2. 2B, fully comprehensive of why Lily wouldn't give the information, left, dragging her idiot partner along with her. They came across the horrible-looking twins, who of course would be useless as always. The Gojo twins proceeded to a half-sunk town looking for the pervy psychopath jackass. They searched high and low but couldn't find her anywhere. They got to what looked like a concrete beach to rest after doing almost nothing. The femboy 9S started feeling like a teenage Gojo and decided to take off his Google blindfold. Under the blindfold was a hideous face, a face he should have kept hidden. He jumped into the water body and began playing with the water. His fun wouldn't last long, as his sadistic partner was against his sudden impulse of uselessness. He convinced his sadistic partner to try the sea. She got into the sea and removed her blindfold. She looked amazed at the scenery, like an 𝐒𝐿𝐍𝐿 who just got reborn in a new world. Her sadistic personality still got the better of her, as she reiterated the uselessness in playing with the sea. She saw a flower similar to the one her operator was intrigued by and decided to show it to her as a gift. It made the operator very happy. She was getting rewarded for doing absolutely nothing but being useless. Just as they were about heading back, 2B heard jackass. She was in nothing but her underwear trying to catch a fish. Her name made more sense to the androids. She was a real jackass. When 2B approached the half-naked psychopath assistant, she inquired into why the assistant chose to be so shameless. Rather than think it through, Jackass felt it was better for her to flex the underwear and fish she caught. Uninterested in Jackass antics, 2B asked her question. Fortunately for her, Jackass wasn't entirely useless. She knew about Lily's past with A2. 2B tried to contact 9S so he could finally assimilate some useful information for once on that day, but she failed to reach him. His comms were down. 30 minutes earlier, 9S left his partner searching for Jackass so he could hack into 𝐒𝐿𝐍 base. He wanted to know why A2 had run away. He successfully hacked into the network using his mechanical operator as a decoy. He was caught, forcing him to retreat and stop the hacking. Back to the present, 9S was thinking about his errors. His luck had run out and his situation became worse. A2 was in the ruin with him, dropping a pink ball, a perfect distraction for a femboy like him. She launched her attack. She lured him into a room filled with creepy art. When he tried walking through the exit, she pounced. Meanwhile, 2B had begun to worry more. She had no idea where 9S was, as something was still jamming the signal. Back at the mysterious table, Eve was still waiting for Adam. It had been a long time since he left. Eve tried scanning for his brother, but he couldn't sense him. He panicked. 9S was locked in a cyberspace. He didn't remember what happened or who jumped him, but he knew he was locked somewhere on the internet without an exit. A mechanical voice appeared and started spewing gibberish he couldn't understand. The voice changed. Now it was more coordinated. It kept on teasing 9S about his inability to pull 2B. The voice then introduced itself. It was one of the low-budget attack titans the Gojo twins failed to kill. It continued teasing the femboy. 9S started panicking. It was too much for him. The voice then grew tentacles like a pervy isekai antagonist and wrapped it around 9S, further throwing it into a room. Meanwhile, 2B and Jackass were still at the concrete beach. 2B asked the half-naked assistant to head back to camp and keep the resistance alert, and the Jackass agreed. 2B continued her search for her partner. While searching, she saw her partner's useless robot assistant. It had lost all its grasp of what happened before. She headed to the building 9S got abducted. She saw the same creepy art he came across, and she was more disgusted. On one of the arts was a letter. It was from the abductor. 2B requested backup from 𝐒𝐂𝐑𝐈𝐍𝐿, but the goth-like commander wouldn't grant it. She was having a bad hair day. Unaffected by the commander's selfish and stupid decision, the sadistic android continued her search for her partner. She jumped into the hole where her partner was held. In there was an elevator that led to a bizarre city. Unlike the rest of their world, it wasn't in ruins but was still ugly. She was led into a building. This structure was creepier than everywhere else, with designs made of 𝐒𝐂𝐑𝐈𝐍𝐿 members and walls that moved. A mysterious man showed up. It was Adam, one of the two evolving attack titans. 2B couldn't recognize him because he had gone from a Walmart attack titan to an ugly android. He stated that if she killed him, her partner 9S would remain hidden for the rest of eternity. He wanted to introduce her to someone. As he snapped his fingers, the ugliest pieces of shit that had ever been seen in this world was revealed. It looked like giant turtles had their heads cut off and baked in a one-piece blast furnace. They were the creators of the junk bots. Adam was proud. He was displaying creatures uglier than himself for the first time. He proceeded to ask for 2B's hand in marriage, and she immediately rejected him. After getting humiliated, he showed her 9S. He had tortured him. 2B set her sword ready to strike and kill the ugly robot in front of her. She attacked him and kicked him through his walls. When he got up, he brought out his 9S replica and continued yapping. 2B continued her assault, but was held down by multiple 9S replicas. Unfortunately for Adam, she was just a diversion. The robot assistant of 9S had hacked into his system, crashing the world and releasing 2B. He was now weak. 2B charged at him with her sword and lunged to her heart. It wasn't his, it was Eve. He had come looking for his brother. The useless, unintelligent brother threw 2B away, but died. Adam, amused at his brother's action, wailed. He had lost his weak, foolish brother. The sadistic android 2B and the depressed leader Lily stood at the edge of a broken building. They were discussing the state of her femboy partner 9S. He had been transported to 𝐒𝐂𝐑𝐈𝐍𝐿 base for treatment, leaving 2B alone for a while. After contacting 𝐒𝐂𝐑𝐈𝐍𝐿 base commander, she was given a new mission to find and kill Adam. On the mysterious table, Adam, looking uglier than ever, was approached by a group of junk bots. One of the trash cans was dressed like a beaten-up priest. This sight irritated Adam so much, he kicked the priest's head off. Not a very Adamly thing to do. 2B got to a junk bot factory and she met the group of trash cans who approached Adam. They were worshipping a god. They invited her to meet this god, who she knew to be Adam. Walking around the factory, she saw multiple instances of junk bots preaching, hoping their god would redeem them of their uselessness. After ascending the elevator, she walked towards the altar. It wasn't Adam. It was another useless piece of scrap metal wearing a priest's outfit. It was dead. The other junk bots in the area began a ritual. They were moving their torches up and down repeatedly, chanting gibberish. They approached 2B, ready to attack. Grabbing a nearby pole, 2B became a lancer warrior from fate, fighting back with her cheap spear. She slashed as many as she could and flinged the spear into the trash cans who were holding fire, causing a minor explosion she exploited to escape. Running into the nearest elevator, she fled. She met another junk bot in the elevator, a junk bot she planned on killing. Surprisingly, this junk bot was 9S. He had hacked into the system of the robot at the factory. The factory was now in a ruckus. The so-called religious junk bots were now killing themselves. As she attempted to escape, a bigger special junk bot appeared. It had been a while since she faced one of those. It had an energy field as a shield and hit 9S away. He instantly tried to hack into the energy source while 2B continued holding it off. 9S shut down the power and 2B finished off the giant hunk of junk. After she cleared that hurdle, the junk bots increased. They were coming at her in the thousands, forcing her to use the robot assistants at full power. They couldn't finish off all the junk bots, so 2B was left alone. To her surprise, the junk bots weren't aiming for her, but for the magma behind her. They were so useless, they had to turn off their life switch causally. Back at 𝐒𝐂𝐑𝐈𝐍𝐊 base, they noticed a change in junkbot behavior. They were all rising and now more aggressive. The base now needed to deploy all the useless androids they possessed. At the resistance camp, they were facing attack from the now active junkbots. They requested for backup, forcing 2B to rush over. The resistance camp was attacked, members of it being killed and eaten by the now aggressive tin cans. It was all in ruins, now worse than before, everywhere burning. 2B, on her way to save any other person that remained, received a call from 𝐒𝐂𝐑𝐈𝐍𝐊 base. Because of the now more active junk bots, all androids were allowed to use full power. The resistance were fighting back strongly, but there was more trash than they could handle. They were overwhelmed and lost of ideas. Just when they were at their limits, 2B arrived. They explained the situation to her. They had lost more than half their forces battling special grade trash, and over 200,000 soldiers were still incoming. 2B formulated a plan and prepared to attack. Before long, they had set a trap. When the trash army reached it, all of them ceased to function. It was successful. As they celebrated, 9S arrived with one of the cheap flight suits. To spoil the party, the dead junk bots fell and glided along the path they were combining. They grew and became a familiar ugly face. It was Eve, he roared at the camp. It didn't change the fact that he was still the same weak fool. A member of the resistance shot it with a bazooka, making it fall like the useless trash can it was. It rose up again, this time with an uglier face. It looked like a low-budget muck monster from Ben 10. The camp was forced to retreat. In the head of this ugly monster was another hideous lifeform, Adam. He had come to get rid of the androids once and for all. He was still pained and in regret about 2B rejecting him. With the monster going berserk, the resistance decided they'd fight back. Lily asked the obese weapons maker to fix up one of their special cheap junk. With the help of 9S, they could make it capable of destroying the ugly lifeform in front of them. The rest would continue holding it off. They were ready to finally rid their world of garbage. They launched a full-on assault, 9S attacking from the sky and 2B with the resistance attacking from the ground. The resistance were weak, but they could hold off the smaller junk bots. A special red-faced junk bot attempted to attack 2B from the back. Feeling like a blue lock player, she hit it with a bicycle kick. It was a special unit, one of the types who cleared half the resistance. While 2B fought it, she asked the resistance to move on to the rendezvous point where they'd fire their ace. 2B, on the other hand, continued attacking the special units. It led her into a trap with two other special junk bots. Now in a pickle, she decided to use one of her special moves, a watered-down breathing technique strike. With the help of her robot assistant's decoy, she slashed all three junk bots along with half three buildings. Meanwhile, now with his special gadget at hand, 9S, with the help of Pascal, launched an attack on the monster. Dropping off from Pascal, he touched Adam with his device, allowing him to hack in directly. In Adam's mindscape were low-budget heaven, earth, and hell. 9S was confused. With 9S distracting the monster from its mindscape, the resistance fired their special weapon and crashed multiple buildings on the ugly beast. They then launched into the sky with a nuke and exploded it, causing the monster to come crashing back down, destroying a good area of land including its ugly face. The monster was destroyed, and the Gojo twins along with the resistance were safe. The goth-like commander felt selfless for the first time and used a special laser from base without authorization. Feeling like hot stuff, she walked out of the control room, accumulating her aura points. Asking the resistance to go treat themselves, the Gojo twins approached the explosion site to confirm the death of the monster. An ugly face remained. Adam was still alive, but faintly. Now he was as weak and useless as his dead brother. In his final moments he cried, and just as he was about to be killed, projected his memories into 2B, almost sympathizing with him. She required the help of 9S to finish him off. They killed Adam, causing all the active junk bots who were connected to stop working. Unfortunately for the team, 9S got infected after hacking into Adam. After a lot of unnecessary drama from 9S, 2B killed off her partner. She choked him to death, a finishing that would satisfy a socks addict like him. The dead robots began beeping. They had finally been put down. A big trash can around 2B rose. It was 9S. He linked his data to the surrounding network. 2B was delighted. Her femboy partner wasn't gone. The resistance, along with Pascal and his junk village, were safe. Over the next few weeks, the junk bots had died down, leaving everywhere peaceful. 9S was in the process of synchronizing his data when he came across a weird bug. He halted the process and went into the main Yora database. His foolish self forgot to cover his tracks once again and was caught. He was chased by knockoff Star Wars ships and was finally caught in a black box. The head of Yora caught him and cleared his memory. When he woke up, he had forgotten everything that happened on the server. His partner 2B requested for his help. Trying not to think too deeply about losing his memory, he left the base to assist his partner. With 9S gone and his memory clear, the head of Yorha was satisfied with the recent sequence of actions. Knowing their secrets were safe, the big bad bosses continued controlling everything from the shadows.